Iran is close to finalizing a deal to buy Chinese-made CM-302 supersonic anti-ship cruise missiles, according to 6 sources cited by Reuters, as the U.S. deploys major naval forces near Iran ahead of possible strikes.
Iran is not threatening war against the United States. It's the United States threatening war against Iran. So how can you say, now that Iran is being threatened with war and military confrontation by the United States, therefore you should not export missiles to Iran? It's just the opposite. The United States should stop threatening Iran with war and engage with Iran in peace, rather than in such military jingoism.
For all the talk that we hear from different countries all across the world, in particular the region, saying we oppose U.S. and Israeli war on Iran, and all these countries that had such bad things to say about Israel over the past several years and how much they stand with Palestine. It amazes me how absolutely none of them are doing anything remotely tangible for Iran at this point in time. I mean, this is like the 11th hour and no one is moving a finger. You'd think that someone would recognize that there's a lot of strength in standing with Iran. It makes a lot of sense. It's going to save your asses if you stand with Iran in more ways than one. And I'm specifically looking at, these countries like Saudi, like Qatar. I'm looking at Turkey. Okay, so you could say, well, Jackson, but some of these countries, they are not major producing nations. They're not major manufacturing nations. Okay, Turkey has a very strong military production industry. Very strong. I know they're in NATO, but who's to say they couldn't, covertly slide some tech and some assets into Iran? Who's to say? Who's to say? Surely they slid a lot of assets covertly into the north of Syria. Surely they did that, and they did that for years, and they ended up being successful. So who's to say they couldn't do that? Anyways, we now have to watch as Iran looks outside of the region, outside of their neighbors, direct neighbors, for this collaboration and support, okay? They are looking to China. They are looking to Russia. It goes without saying that Iran can defend itself quite well on its own, but every country has different things that they specialize in. For Iran, it is ballistic missiles and drones, but they need more than just that, okay? And here is how China and Russia have come in to help over the past few days. Of course, we have been following the story of Iran, Russia, China, the military relationship very closely over the past few months, but there is even more now that we need to take a look at. So Beijing has reported YLC-8B radar systems that can track F-35s and B-2 bombers at long range. Okay, this is extremely important for Iran, not necessarily to, stop the attacks from taking place, which, okay, they can be useful for that, but it is even more important for the simple reason of protecting their missile launchers and their air defense systems. Okay, B-2 bombers, they're not going to be looking for the launchers. They're not going to be looking for the air defense systems. But, the fighter jets, what is going to be their MO at the start of this conflict? For as long as it takes, they are going to be hunting down all of the missile launching systems that they can find and all of the air defense systems, okay? They understand that a lot of the internal Mossad networks have been compromised. So the idea that the U.S. and Israel can rely on them once more to create untold levels of damage to Iran's defense systems and I guess possibly launching systems, it's not really something they can put their faith into. Also, Iran has done a really good job of protecting, building up bunkers and netting over their air defense systems to protect from internal drone attacks. Obviously, this is still going to happen, but Iran has cracked down on these networks a lot over the past several months in particular, but obviously since the 12-day war. They're also pushing Iran to ditch GPS for China's Beidou satellite system to prevent U.S. tracking of targets inside the country. The MSS is urging Tehran to replace all U.S. and Israeli software with encrypted Chinese systems that are harder to penetrate. China won't fight alongside Iran, but they're making sure their $400 billion investment and their largest oil supplier doesn't go down easy. 20 to 30% of global crude flows through the Strait of Hormuz. Washington is moving carriers into position. So yeah, and it's also just a security issue for the Chinese and Belt and Road Initiative. This is from Dropsite News. This was like the big story of the week. I don't know how many of you caught this, but Iran is close to finalizing a deal to buy Chinese-made CM-302 supersonic anti-ship cruise missiles, according to 6 sources cited by Reuters, as the U.S. deploys major naval forces near Iran ahead of possible strikes. So Iran has a lot of anti-ship capabilities. They have new missiles that they have unveiled, which fly just above sea level, which is fascinating. They were deploying some of these assets and they were testing them out, and it looks to be very promising, but they're not even content with just that. They have submarines, they have destroyers, which can fire torpedoes. Maybe some of them are shorter range, but still very impressive. They have naval drones, which are extremely impressive. They have speedboats, which can fire missiles as well. But they are not content, which shows that they understand that if they were to take down one of these U.S. aircraft carriers, 4,000, 5,000, 6,000 men on board, that would be a really big defeat for the United States. Humiliating, to say the least. The missiles that they're looking to buy from China, with a range of about 180 miles, fly low and fast to evade ship defenses and could significantly boost Iran's ability to target U.S. vessels in the region. Talks underway for at least 2 years accelerated after the last year's 12-day war. Senior Iranian officials, including Deputy Defense Minister Masoud Orei, reportedly traveled to China during final negotiations. So we did see that. We saw those photos. We saw even some of those Iranian defense officials in Chinese fighter jets, which was very interesting. It is unclear how many missiles are involved or whether Beijing will complete the transfer amid rising tensions, the report says. However, the potential sale would mark one of China's most advanced weapons transfers to Iran in decades. But not just that, the Russians are also increasing support. We've followed the Russian deployment of the Mi-28 helicopters, attack helicopters. Those are important for attacking drones, yes, but also for internal sabotage groups. And MEK, for example, which is a fairly well-organized militant organization that is backed by Mossad in the United States. So when you're looking at the possibility of the U.S. saying, click the red button, we're activating ourselves inside of Iran now that the war has begun, these Mi-28 attack helicopters will be absolutely crucial in neutralizing those threats. I mean, I would not want to be one of those MEK militants having to meet an Mi-28 attack helicopter. That would not be a great way to go down. But also, Iran has secured a covert 500 million euro agreement with Russia for 500 Verba manpads and 2,500 missiles. The systems capable of hitting drones and low-firing aircraft are due for delivery between 2027 and 2029, with possible early transfers. Sorry, I'm looking at the news right now from Middle East Spectator about what is going on. The Iranian foreign minister looks very happy. Apparently, they're going to be having another meeting in Vienna on Monday. They did cancel the idea of having meetings tomorrow in Geneva once more, so they're going to go back to their capitals. They're going to have another meeting in Vienna on Monday. Iran's foreign minister said that this was the best round of negotiations so far. I swear to God, they're actually trolling so hard. The Iranians got the worst offer yet, and they're just trolling. I think what we're going to see is Israel strike first. The U.S. will come in. The Iranians are buying as much time as possible. Very smart. Very smart. 2 Russian cargo planes just pulled the classic nothing to see here move. God, I hate the way Mario Nawful writes his tweets. just ChatGPT is every tweet, every single tweet is just like Hasbara, Ben Shapiro, ChatGPT rhetoric. Anyways, no, this was very interesting, though. Most of the Russian cargo jets that we see headed into Iran, you can actually see which city they are landing in. But there were two Ilyushin IL-76 TDs that flew to Iran this week. And when they got in Iranian airspace, they turned off their transponders, which was never seen that before. Then, after some time, they popped up on the ground again in Tehran. So they went somewhere in Iran. And they made sure that no one saw where they were headed. They made sure that they were flying incognito with whatever they sent in this shipment to Iran in two cargo jets. And then, poof, they are back on the ground in Tehran. So what could they have possibly shipped? Well, we know for a fact that there's a lot of things that the Iranians are expecting, have been expecting, and have been pressuring the Russians to send their way. I guess we'll have to wait and see. Could be anything. Could be anything. Could be a lot of things. But whatever it was, the Iranians and Russians didn't want anyone to know where it is being deployed and stored. Victor Gao and the great neutrality studies, Pascal from Neutrality Studies, were on with Rick Sanchez this week. And Victor Gao was talking about Chinese support for Iran, and he had this to say about the possibility of China selling the CM-302 anti-ship missiles to Iran. Take a listen.
Reuters has just reported, and what they're reporting is that Iran is very close to a deal with China to purchase anti-ship cruise missiles. This, of course, is just as the United States is getting ready to deploy a vast naval force, or already has, to the Iranian coast ahead of a possible attack on Iran. It's a little off topic, but Victor, would you comment on this for us? Because we're talking about Chinese, they're called CM-302 missiles, described as supersonic missiles. They have a range of about 300,000 kilometers. They're designed to evade shipborne defenses they go really low down to almost the surface of the water and then can rise again. Did I say something? 300, yes, kilometers. Victor, what do you make of this? What should we think of this? What does it say?
Thank you very much. Both China and Iran are two fully independent countries with their sovereignty. And there is no international law which prohibits China and Iran to engage with each other in commercial transactions. And China happens to produce some of the most sophisticated missiles of all kinds. And it's absolutely right for China and Iran to size up each other and engage in whatever economic and commercial transactions they desire to do that, including involving such military missiles. And I think the whole world should be put on notice that both China and Iran will have full sovereign right to do such commercial transactions with each other, and no country should pretend to be surprised. So it is clear to everyone in the world in decency that Iran is not threatening the United States with war or military confrontation. It is just the opposite. The United States is threatening war against Iran, coupled with Israel. Therefore, let's really clarify who is at fault, who is not at fault. Iran is not threatening war against the United States. It's the United States threatening war against Iran. So how can you say, now that Iran is being threatened with war and military confrontation by the United States, therefore you should not export missiles to Iran? It's just the opposite. The United States should stop threatening Iran with war and engage with Iran in peace, rather than in such military jingoism.
Straight facts from Victor Gao out of China. Both are sovereign countries, Iran and China, and they have full discretion to do whatever trade they want to do with one another, including sending these CM-302 anti-ship cruise missiles to Iran. And I guess this is now why we see these Zionist organizations the Jewish People Policy Institute, never heard of it in my life, but it's getting a lot of traction right now online because of the absurdity of it. The JPPI has released a new report claiming that China is pivoting toward anti-Semitism. The grand foreign policy of the entire nation of China, according to the Jewish People Policy Institute, is the anti-Semitism pivot. You've heard of the China pivot, you've heard of the Russia pivot, and now we have the pivoting towards anti-Semitism. The report states that anti-Semitism is rising in China, entering official media, academia, and state-sanctioned discourse. The report also says China is perceiving Jews as having significant influence over American policy. What? What are you talking about? That is totally not the case. Who would ever allege something like that? Leading to hostility toward the U.S. being expressed as anti-Semitic rhetoric. So let me get this straight. The Jewish People Policy Institute, the Zionists, are now saying that if China is openly hostile to the U.S., that in it of itself is anti-Semitic. You know, the U.S. is beefing up the military assets in countries all around China, South China Sea, Taiwan. They're doing these massive $11 billion deals with Taiwan as they continue to threaten the idea of war against China. Everyone in the U.S. military-industrial complex is beefing up their assets, their capabilities, their production levels, the speed of production for 2027, 2028, 2029, because that's when they believe there's going to be a war against China. But if China speaks out against any of that, it's actually just anti-Semitic, because apparently they say that the U.S. is controlled by pro-Israel forces. Amazing. Amazing. China. I think what they're really upset about isn't even the idea that they're supporting Iran so much in this conflict. I think they're upset because China bans new investments in Israel, which is actually hilarious. Before you leave, I want to say thank you for the support, because after 2 years of being banned, we are finally back home on YouTube. So be sure to subscribe to our channel and also join as a member on our channel using the link at the top of the description. I rely on the generous support of viewers like yourself to get the truth out to as many people as possible. You can also support the show on Locals or Give Sin Go. The mainstream media and the powers that be are never going to stop attacking us for bringing the truth to as many people as we do. Thank you so much for your support.